everyone. My name is Pekka Laurila. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Iceye. And we are very much in the business of information. Like very specifically, we are in the business of global, time-critical, and reliable information. And we do all this with our own set of microsatellite assets operating with a radar imaging. And what's cool about radar imaging and our assets is that pretty much three things. One, we can see in the dark. So take pictures day and night, the radar image looks all the same. So it's very important for the reliability perspective. And the two, we can see through clouds. So the radar pulse goes through clouds, reflects back, and then we can get the same image regardless of if it's nice day or cloudy weather or rainy. Also very important for the sort of critical use cases to monitor. And number three, and this is very unique, we can operate a very large constellation, meaning that we can provide very high revisit rates and very quick reaction. So this is really where we are doing something completely unique, bringing for the first time in the world this type of service where you can really monitor things in human timescale, both day and night, over the entire globe. And now, why is this possible now? Why wasn't it possible before? Is because previously, if you wanted to launch one satellite, you would need $1 billion of a budget and a national space program, and let alone launching tens of them. That would mean even more budget than that, and that was just simply not commercially feasible. Now, we've been talking about the broad spectrum of what new space is, but to us it's about utilizing industrial processes, components that have been created for other things like mobile phones, laptops, or it's the availability of commercial launchers, availability of rideshare on commercial launchers, artificial intelligence for analytics, really being able to, for the first time, really crunch all this data too. So it's an ecosystem shift, and it's really making a lot of things possible. Among one things, it's us too. And now this is a very high-level introduction. I mean, my speech was supposed to be focused on a founder story, now this is essentially the sort of core idea that we'd start with. That all right, so we need to be able to produce this type of data stream business to these users that are, say, maritime, needing to time critically monitor, in an hour scale, what's happening around them. So we want to be operating in the very right of this chart. So provide data stream information, labeled data, to the end users. Now then we, take 5 years back, we'd start rolling back that, all right, now can we just buy those images and start providing those services? Turns out, no, there are not enough satellites to provide, this type of services in a time-critical manner. Can we perhaps, lease a piece of somebody else's constellation? Can we pool satellites into a constellation? I mean, still not enough. Turns out it's too expensive, too slow, they don't exist. Now, then the question, okay, can we build our own constellation? Can we buy a satellite from someone else, have them build it for us, launch it for us? Too expensive? Too slow? The same story. All right, no, I mean, fine, let's build our own satellites. Can we at least buy a sensor for our satellites? No. So now take this back 5 years. Here is 23-year-old, almost bachelor of technology, Pekka, sort of like, deciding that, well, I mean, it's a great idea. Let's actually just ourselves build all of this. Sounds good. There's a few people in this room, who were there at that time, and thanks for believing. Here we are. So how we start, rolling this back into a business where we are right now. So, first there would be somebody believing that that idea is for some reason possible, and then we'd start building, because we actually had to build from the sensor, really ground up, resistor level building the sensor, because this type of sensor didn't exist. This was our first, not exactly a satellite. So a year into the game, we have a sensor that essentially is capable to work as a radar, and it's mobile. As you can see, it's on wheels. Didn't convince investors. Wasn't exactly a privately financeable situation at this stage. But luckily, we were working, at the university with the university, so we were able to push on with the technology. Now here, 2 years into the game, we're pushing the sensor into an airplane, which is clearly still not a satellite, and their instruments are also pretty crude, but we're able to essentially prove the concept of the high temporal resolution data being worth money by showing this to customers, running airborne demonstrations to customers. We're able to prove that the technology prototype works by flying it in an airplane, and this allows us to pull not only, customers, public financing, and private investors into the game. And so this is really kind of where we kick off at around 2015. And then we'd be essentially pushing the instrument smaller and smaller, flying it with everything we can get our hands on. And we're actually producing revenue on airborne services. So, it's an important thing to continuously have the dialogue with the customers that what is it that they would do. This is not profitable business doing the airborne services like this, but it's a key for us to understand how do we deal with large amounts of data, what does the customer actually want to do with the data, and then also kind of prove ourselves that we're actually capable to do all this step by step. We start making our first satellite at end of 15 to really showcase that this we can do not only the satellite, but not only the sensor, but also the satellite to really work within this business model that it's low cost enough that we can launch them in a massive constellation. Remember, had just not been done before, and was even sort of pretty clearly on papers supposed to be impossible. So we spend time building our first proof of concept, and building it further, and then this is our first satellite. It's a 70-kilogram microsatellite which has our own first spaceborne sensor in it. This is roughly a year ago. This picture. This is when we were taking it to the launch site. It was designed to fit in our office elevator, so that's exactly fits there. So the first launch happened from India in January, and here we are flying to space on the lower right from the launcher. And really, 5 years into the game, we get to show that yes, this premise is possible. So this is, Iceye was supposed to be about imaging ice. This is our picture from space with our own instrument, with our own satellite, showing that so far so good. Technology is possible, and then we can build a sensor that allows us to do the time-critical monitoring. And I'm showing you a few other pictures too, because this, we really love this because this is something that is really cool. There are ships in ice in this picture. Here are ships in open water. So what we're really doing is that we're trying to build the basic prototypes of showcasing that the types of services of monitoring things either around you or then monitoring the things is possible with the sort of resolution and quality of the data. So those are individual tankers, and then you can clearly see what they are. Here's a lot of ships. This is a scene that we took over Singapore. The single scene has over 500 ships in it. And you can imagine, what's running there on the left corner is essentially like a training data set that we're pushing to make all this detection automatic too. Here's even more ships, and now, this has been possible before taking its individual pictures, but now imagine being able to actually for the first time take this data set into something that allows you to sort of do the operational monitoring, that where are these ships right now, and then capture a picture an hour later where are the ships then, instead of what's currently possible, rather monitoring them every 2 days or so. So it's a big shift. Now some other things around sort of human timescale use cases. This is us our view of a fill rate of a parking lot. You don't want to monitor your own parking lot with a satellite, but to get sort of like globally objective economic indicators, it's extremely important to be able to monitor not just once per week what's happening, but really kind of see the curve of people coming to work, being at work, leaving work, then being at home, and that's something that just simply again has never been done before. Another economic indicator, we published a deal with an analytics company moving to create world crude oil supply and demand situation picture based on our own data, monitoring the world oil storage tanks. And here's a view of agriculture. So the red circles over there really show active irrigated fields, and then besides them there are fields that are not being actively used. And again, has to do with the sort of like real-time metrics of understanding when people are irrigating, harvesting, planting, but also the sort of like more general global objective economic indicators of what's happening all around the world, in particularly the type of human timescales that have not been able to be monitored before. This is Iceye's session, and we are very happy to be collaborating with Iceye too. Like where Iceye and a small company fits very well together is that like now I just showed you a bunch of data that showcases that it's possible to do these analytics, but like now configuring these data into essentially like calibrated data products is something that space agencies have been doing forever, and we are certainly aiming to take all the advantage of exactly that. And there's a large community of people in the user space that already know what they would do with the data, and our job right now is to really just make sure that we are able to format our deliverables into something that is usable in the market. Where are we right now? We're right now around 70 people, and still based and headquartered in Finland. Just last week we published a financing round of 34 million USD. So this really puts us in a trajectory to like not just demonstrate technology, but to launch the commercial constellation. And that's exactly what we're intending to do next. We are the world leader in this particular field. I put it's there because it's not necessarily self-evident, but that's true because I say so. The launch timelines, just put the sort of like next pieces of this story into perspective, is that this year there's going to be 2 more launches, us demonstrating slightly higher resolution, more construction, it's like manufacturing related timelines, and then kind of really us showing that like yes, we can do these in masses, and then the first fully operational constellation will still will already be running at the end of next year. This is something that the new financing round has sort of like put us in a good trajectory for, and then what I just showed you in the very beginning as the 20 satellite constellation is supposed to be up by end of 2020, and this really puts us in a point good 7 years into the game to essentially being able to deliver what we set out to do quite a while ago already. And then really just to show kind of like what the sort of end state, or not really end state, but the sort of target state for that constellation is that we are aiming to be in a good enough resolution to be able to monitor all the sort of meaningful human timescale activities like cars on parking lots, ships, storage tanks, and all of this. And now for the first time in the world in timescales that allows you to actually monitor that activity without sort of like only thinking about it statistically, but also operationally, and really be able to do this over the entire globe. And it's a very exciting industry to be in. It's a very exciting time for us personally, and it's a very exciting time for the the world, if I put it like this. So this is my contact. Thanks.